So to start this off anyway, my name is Darragh. I have been working at this company about 4.5 years now, 5 years in November. Um, I'll, of course, be the one who's showing the system today. And after this, it will be roughly around an hour and a half. After this, we'll follow you up. And of course, if you're interested, you can come to us obviously. But if we don't hear from you, a member of our team, we'll get in touch to just catch up, maybe arrange a one-to-one kind of thing, maybe just to, discuss further, more personally, kind of giving you an actual, let's say, personal quote towards your own company. Now, I will just wait another moment or two before actually getting into the demonstration itself. You should all be able to see my screen, which I hope is the case. Now, as well, there is a questions and answers panel. So if you have any questions, you can feel free to drop them as a message into the chat. Now, I might not get to them immediately, but by the end, I will have them answered, of course. Okay, so 12 o'clock. What we're looking at here, this screen, this would be a client of mine. This client is already, being cared for by myself, by my company. And what we can actually see here on this screen is the critical information regarding Mary. Now, the critical information that is on this screen is actually gathered from completing assessments for Mary. Within Nourish, you're going to have a list of assessments, which we can actually see here. If I just click on this arrow up at the top right, we can see this list of assessments. We've curated this list of assessments from speaking to people like yourselves, people in the industry, gathering which assessments are necessary. Now, if there was ever a case, now at this point, I think I'd actually be surprised if you were to be able to find something. But let's say there was something that you deemed necessary that we didn't have here. You can come to us. It makes sense to us. We will add it to this list. Like I said, we've curated this from speaking to people like yourselves, and we want to improve, of course. Now, what I'm not going to do here today is run through every single assessment because, that would likely we could go through that in the whole hour and a half. There's a lot more to talk about in this system, of course, not just assessments. We've got care plans. There's a family portal. There's detailed client and carer profiles where we can store and upload customized documents, checklist items, anything at all that you need from your clients and carers. There's, of course, a scheduling system. There is a medication system where you can get your medication administration reports, your MAR sheets. Along with the MAR sheets, there's all other sorts of reporting as well. So if you need to see, let's say appointments that have been monitored or tasks completed, appointments missed, anything at all that you need to see, you'll be able to report on within this system too. As well, there's a finance section where you can generate timesheets and invoices based on the care that's been provided. And of course, there's a mobile app where your staff are going to be able to clock in, clock out, record tasks, medication, and so on. Now, with this assessments, like I said, we're not going to go through all of them, but there's one I want to show you, a very, very important one here. And it's actually called the Community Care Needs Assessment. This would be one that we do right away. This would be usually the first assessment that we complete, an initial assessment. And again, I'm not going to, go through every single question here in granular detail. But what I will do is I'm just going to go through this, show you the actions that you can take, and then show you what happens after this. So it'll start out by asking the funding and package type. So is this client a private client or through the local authority? How are they paying? We can add information regarding their home. Is there parking available? Is there a key safe? Are there any pets? We can add information regarding their medical history. Is there any, medical conditions, surgical procedures, safety equipment, or medical devices in the house? All of these as well, once we click onto them, we're going to be asked for more information. So if we say that, yes, Mary does have food allergies, we can see there, it's actually open another box here asking me to document that. Allergies and intolerances, not just food, could be contact skin, could be a medication allergy or any sort of intolerance whatsoever. Legal status and consent. So is Mary in control of her own finances? Does she make decisions on her own? If not, who are guardians, who are powers of attorney and things like that? Is Mary, excuse me, is Mary currently under safeguarding? Um, then we've got routines. So from morning to nighttime routines, pretty straightforward, really. And then the care and support requirements. What are the types of things that we actually need to do to help Mary? How does Mary need our help? Now, once we get to the bottom of this list, we're going to be able to see a list of actions. And these actions are regular assessments that Nourish recommends us to complete. So, abilities assessment, communication, clinical history, diet, nutrition, and allergies and intolerances are being recommended to us. But if I was to scroll up and we can say that, yes, Mary is currently under safeguarding, we can see it's opened up another line asking a detail. And then once I scroll down to the very bottom again, we can see it's asking to document that safeguarding outcome. Now, like I said, those actions turn into regular assessments. We can see Mary's regular assessments listed here on the left-hand side. And if at any point Mary's situation changes, I can archive these assessments. I can start new assessments. So I'm not locked into this. Now, I hope that all makes sense, because I'm going to move on now and we're going to start talking about where we can actually create a care plan for Mary. Now, within Nourish, you're actually given a template. And the template will be a list of folders and a list of pages. We can see all of those here on the screen. The folders listed here on the left-hand side, and we can also actually see them numbered and listed here on the middle of the screen. Then within those folders, we have pages, which we can actually see here listed too. And I can click into them further, click into, let's say, accommodation, cleanliness, and comfort. Now, when we are updating a care plan, we can actually customize everything about this. So maybe, I want to use something very, very similar to what Nourish, has given me as a template, but I don't want to use the exact language. I want to tweak this slightly. I can come in here and I can edit this to cleaning or whatever it might be. It is a fully customizable free type text box. That goes the same with the identified need. Fully customizable, anything we want in there. The level of need from NA to 4. Planned outcomes and how to achieve these outcomes. 2 more free type text boxes. Interactions can be added to this section of the care plan, and I can add multiple interactions if I need. You do have a list of interactions that you can select from, or you can actually create your own within the system as well. But just to give you an example here, for accommodation, cleanliness, and comfort, maybe change the bed linen description maybe every week on Monday, or whatever the case may be. And these interactions, once they've been saved, they will be added to the bottom section of this care plan. Now, we can link these to tasks. Then when your staff are completing these tasks through the mobile app, the history of those interactions will then be visible to us managers, administrators, whatever the case may be. It's going to be visible here on this interaction graph here. We can, of course, there's going to be actually no recorded data here for Mary, but we can filter back and we can see the history of this interaction taking place. Now, of course, I don't need to add interactions to this. I don't have to if I don't want to. And I can also add in risks, where we can add multiple risks involved too. Now, I'll just take one here. Accommodation, cleanliness, and comfort. There might not be huge amounts of risks involved unless maybe someone has very strong allergies or anything like that. Maybe they've got, maybe 10 or 15 cats, causing a little bit of a hygiene risk there potentially. But whatever the case may be, we can put in the risk title as well as risk actions. And then we can select a likelihood score. 1 to 5, how likely is this to happen? We can also select an impact score, 1 to 5. And we'll be given a risk score based on that. Anything 12 or higher is going to be considered high risk. Now we can add responsible people to this. We can add a review note and set the date for the next review date. Now what I'll do is I will just cancel out of this so I don't update poor Mary's care plan here with that with that little bit of gibberish. But what we can do, I just want to show you also that any of these pages as well, you can archive any of these. I can also add in my own fully customizable folders and pages. So I can select a folder here from a drop-down box, or we have a free type text box. You can see I put anything I want in there. It's totally customizable. And then the very same here with our pages, where I can select what folder I'm adding this to. I can select from a drop-down box, or I can create my own. And then whatever the case may be, all of these pages will have the exact same format. And when I'm talking about formats, I mean, of course, it's going to have a title, a review date, identified need, level of need, planned outcomes, how to achieve these outcomes, any potential interactions or risks involved too. Now, when it comes to, let's say, a care plan coming for review, an assessment coming for review, we're going to be able to see that in the warning section. Now, I have Mary's warnings muted. Oh, I can see someone has raised a hand. Michael, if you want to type a question into the chat, I'll be able to get to that. Now, when we're talking about warnings, we can click onto a warning, and I can click onto the actual, the body of text itself, and it's going to actually bring me to that section of the care plan that is now out of date and up for review, of course. Now, the next thing I want to show you here is the circle of care. You can't see all participants. Want to know if your team is on the call. I'm not entirely sure, Michael, to be honest with you. There are 7 people on this call at the moment. We will be following up after this though. So yeah, don't worry about that. We can send you on the recording of this as well if people were not able to attend. Now, moving on, we can see our circle of care here. And this circle of care is going to be people within Mary's life. No problem at all, Michael. We can see here there's a family section. That is purely because on Mary's page here, on Mary's profile, I've only created family members within this circle of care. But I could add potentially friends. I could add healthcare professionals. And these people are then going to be able to log in and view Mary's timeline. And Mary's timeline is going to show a number of different things. If I just go back to a day where I know something definitely did happen, what we can do is we can click here and I can see that my carer here, Ken, clocked in and he left a note saying he arrived on time. We can then see tasks completed, the descriptions of those tasks, and if any notes were left as well. The very same for these next tasks completed with the descriptions. And then we can also see the appointment end, my carer here, Ken, clocking out and leaving a note saying that Mary asked him to leave early. So the circle of care can, of course, see what's happened on appointments, but they're also going to be able to see updates to the assessments and updates to care plans. But that is only if you wish them to, because you can filter what they can see. Maybe you only want them being able to see actually what's happened on the appointments. You can change that so they can't see maybe the care plans or the assessments. And one final thing here I want to talk about before we kind of move on is the fact that we can actually link this with GP Connect. Now, GP Connect is it's free, so if you've not heard of it, you're not using it, I certainly recommend looking into it. But it will link with GP Connect, meaning, should Mary go to the GP, all of that information will be stored and logged and so on. Now, hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully that's all fully clear. Of course, feel free to drop any questions in the chat or anything like that. And again, we'll be following up afterwards. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to click over to where we actually do a lot of the day-to-day administration. This section right here is actually where we're going to be doing a lot of the kind of workforce HR, things like that. We can create our rosters, we can do our timesheets, our invoices, we can go really, really nitty-gritty with the reports. We can create our own trainings, checklists, things like that. But before we get into that, This screen right here is the dashboard. And this is what we're seeing when we first log into the system. You can think of it like the front page of a newspaper. It's going to be showing us headlines of the system, highlighting any important or relevant information for us here. For example, maybe I don't want this as busy as I've got mine here. We can X anything off I don't need. I can move things around if I want them. Excuse me. Excuse me. And I can configure the dashboard by adding any categories of information to this screen that I'd like to see. Notices, alerts, even upcoming birthdays, we can just click there. We'll see a brand new widget appears. I can move that around wherever I want on the screen. Now, the next time I log in, this is going to be the dashboard that I'm greeted with. And as well as that, we can also have different dashboards from user to user, administrator to administrator. So just for example, your care manager, your care coordinator, and your finance manager, of course, they will have very different jobs, and they can have very different dashboards, grading them when they first log in to the system. From there, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click onto the admin section. Now, I'm not going to be going through every single category here, but I do want to just go through a few. This admin section, you can really think of it like the settings page. We come here when we want to populate the system with our own business language and our own terminology. Now, first of all, I just want to click up here onto users. Here is where I can create administrator user profiles. This isn't my carers or anything like this. This is just for people logging in, doing my admin. Now, you can create as many of these users as you want, and you give them usernames, passwords, etc. You create as many roles as you want as well. And these roles are fully customizable. We assign users to these roles. And what we can actually then do is allocate permissions to these roles as well. So I can come in here and I can tick or untick what I want this particular role to have access to be able to do within the system. So for example, maybe for my care coordinator, I don't want them being able to do anything finance related. I have everything in that finance section unticked, and then anyone with that particular role and that set of permissions will not be able to do anything finance related within this system. So there's one aspect of the admin section, but it's not just that. It's also where we add in our own custom job titles, our own skills and attributes, our own types of training and checklist items, and types of time off. Let me just go through a couple of these, just a handful of these, just to make sure it's making sense. First of all, if we click onto the checklist, there's a checklist for your carers and your clients. They both work exactly the same way. If there's any sort of items or documentation at all that you need from your clients or your carers before you can work together, you can create them as checklist items. All of these, CV, DBS check, driver's license, right to work in the UK, have all been added into the system by myself, where I can click this green button. We can give it a name in the title, whatever it might be. I can choose maybe this is only completed after the right to work in the UK has been completed, for example. I can choose if this is something that is repeatable, and if so, we can select it to be regular intervals, whether it be days, weeks, months, or years, or I can choose a specific date for something like a passport or a driver's license with an expiry date. If this is compulsory, I can tick that box right here. If we want to block from appointments, I can tick that box right here. If we want to attach documents and we want to make the upload of those documents mandatory, we have all of these configuration options here. I can then choose maybe this is only going to apply to selected carers or job titles, skills, attributes, regions, or statuses. Now, job titles, skills and attributes, regions, and statuses are all fully customizable within this system here. Now, hopefully that makes sense. And what we can then do is on each of our carer profile, of course, this is the carer's checklist, and then each of our client profile will be able to add to the client checklist. I can upload those documents and we can be alerted when things are going to expire, and we'll be alerted again once things have expired. That works very, very similar to the training. Now, there is a training matrix, which we can see here. This is where we will add our different training types, where I click the green button again, give it a name. If this is mandatory for all staff, we can tick there. If this is something that needs to be refreshed, we can select that interval that it needs to be refreshed. If we pay our staff for attending training, we can select from this drop-down box. These different payment groups have been created by myself within the finance section. I'll be going over that in a little while. But if you have created a training rate and you don't pay them at their default rate, you can just click that. Now, if you do pay them at their default rate, we can just tick this box right here and it will override anything that we put in this above box. Then maybe this is only for selected job roles, or maybe it's for all job roles. Whatever the case may be, this is going to be totally up to yourself. Now, a few little differences between this and the checklist would be, one, of course, is that we can pay our staff for these and we can schedule them onto the roster. So your staff will be able to see on the mobile app if they have any upcoming training events on that day or that week or whatever time period it is. Now, skills and attributes is what I want to talk about next, where we can click here and we can add as many different skills and attributes to the system that we need. So fully free type text box. You can see here I'm putting in all that gibberish, and I've actually added to this list here everything. So cooking or driving, maybe being a non-smoker, being from a non-pet household, or something like being a female carer if you've got some female clients who don't wish to deal with any male carers. We can add as many to this list. This list is then on each of our carer profiles, which I just tick or untick what applies to them. Simple as that. It also links with, going back to admin, it also links with requirements and tasks. So first of all, if I click onto requirements, I can actually create as many different requirements as I want. So you can see here I've got things like, being a non-smoker, meaning that any single carer who's going to a particular client with that requirement will need to be a non-smoker. I can select as many, if any, of those skills and attributes that I've just created to this particular requirement. Now that is very, very similar to the tasks, except the tasks are going to be a little bit more specific. So maybe, there's a specific client who doesn't have a requirement for every single appointment, but maybe just for appointments that have a very kind of particular task on them, we can add those skills and attributes to a specific task, like we can see here. So I've got care for pets, and the skill or attribute would need to be care for animals, for example. Now, if I click create task, give it a name, whatever this might be. Yeah, no problem, Michael. That's no problem at all. Thanks for taking the time. We'll be on to you. We'll be on to you in the near future. Now, of course, we can create the task name. We can give it an icon as well. So depending on what this might be, cooking or something like that, we put a fork and knife. Companionship, we put a love heart or whatever it might be. Anything at all. Give a description if we want to give a few lines of text of how to actually do this. But actually, you'll see that I do not actually have descriptions listed there. And there's actually a very good reason for that. It's not just pure laziness, believe it or not. The reason for that is because we can pull these tasks then onto client profiles, and then I can give a personalized description for that task to that particular client. So we can take these very, very broad and generic tasks like I've got here: cooking, companionship, exercise, bathing, all very, very generic and will often apply to multiple, if not all of your clients. And then we can, describe it. Like I said, we can describe that further in the client profile. And of course, like I was suggesting previously, we can add as many, if any, of these skills and attributes to a task that are needed. As default, a task will appear on the mobile app with a yes button and a no button. Your staff take yes or no. You can actually set it that maybe certain tasks you get notified back in the office if it's ticked no on. You can do that. Now, what we can also do is tick this box right here, and an optional note box will appear directly underneath where they tick yes or no, if you want them to be able to leave a note. Now, if you want them not being able to go any further without leaving a note, you can make that note mandatory too. So they're not going to be able to go on to the next task, the next step of the appointment, or whatever the case may be without leaving that note. Then we can add it to every client, add it to every appointment, and prevent it from being removed from appointments, which of course is going to be all very situational depending on what it might be. Now, that is essentially how the admin section works. Of course, I didn't get to go through every single topic in there, but sincerely, when it comes to adding in our own information, like I said, our own job titles, all of these, administrator, care manager, care worker, all been added to the system myself. When it comes to time off types, we've got, car troubles, annual leave, we've got sickness, and we've got sickness in case you don't trust your staff. And yeah, that is how the admin section works. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to move on and click onto my carers section. So this dashboard, this is just a brief overlay of the stats from our carers, and all of this information is going to be able to be found in further detail within the report section. Now, on the left hand side here, we can see a list of our carer names. What I want to show you here as well, just before I go into a carer, I want to just bring your attention to the fact that we can see the training and the checklist summary here as well. So here's where I'll be able to see if any items are expired or never been taken in the first place. And I can also see any items that will be expiring soon. Let me just click into Charlie here, my carer, and we can see his beautiful photograph here. Dolly, yeah, this demo will be shared. Yeah, absolutely no problem. I'll be sending this on to afterwards. No problem at all. Yes, sorry. What we can see, Charlie's beautiful photograph. Of course, we can upload that. We can see Charlie's week of care appointments as well. Now, the blue spaces here are the appointments. The names on the appointments are the client names. So Amy, Raymond, Jake, etc. These are the clients that Charlie is going to visit. We can see Charlie's availability, which are these green, amber, and red lines running throughout the day. This green appointment is actually a training event because we can actually color code appointments however we like. So I personally have mine set for blue is an assigned appointment, green is a training event. I've also got mine set to show maybe unassigned appointments to be red. So it's very easy to see what's what, essentially. You don't need to be clicking into things. You know your color coding, and you can change them to your favorite colors in the whole wide world if you want to. Now, this availability, these lines going through the day, would you believe, set up in the availability tab. Now, we can set minimum and maximum amount of hours worked per week, as well as maximum evenings. And we can also create alternating weeks here, like I've done for Charlie. Created 2 alternating weeks. Charlie, the first week is actually available Saturday and Sunday. The second week, we can see he's not available Saturday and Sunday. So then if I go back to Charlie's roster, we can see he's off this weekend. But then if I click onto next week, we'll be able to see that Charlie is working that weekend with a few appointments he's available. The week after that, we'll be able to see again that he's back to being off. And yeah, we can do up to 8 alternating weeks there as well if we need to. Now, clicking down to the checklist, we can see any mandatory items which would be colored, any not mandatory items which are not colored. We can see the date taken. If there's a refresh period, we'll be able to see that refresh date as well. We can see who updated this, Darragh Connolly, that's me. And then we can also re-download this document again. So if I was to, for example, break my computer, lose all my files and documents, we'll be able to click onto these links and they will re-download to my system. Now, we use the Amazon web. Apologies, that is some terrible timing for me to run out of battery there on my headset. Let me just make sure that this is working. Sorry about that. Poor timing as per the usual. Sorry, just in case I was cut out there. I was just explaining how we use the Amazon web servers. All of these documents is going to be securely stored on those servers. And it's not just for that. It also means that you're going to be able to log in anywhere in the world on any device, so long as that device has a web browser. So if you're using if you usually use a laptop and then you're away some weekend, you need to log on your phone, you can do that, or a tablet. In a pinch, you could go onto a smart TV or a smart fridge as long as it had a web browser. Or if you're feeling particularly adventurous, you could put on a VR headset and do your rostering from there. But yes, cloud-based software, very, very handy, very secure as well. Great for those documents uploading. Now, when it comes to the training events, we already saw the actual training event that was on Charlie's roster here for this week. We can see for it to be confirmed. Confirm attendance. We can see the data was last taken, when it needs to be retaken. If they're currently scheduled, we'll be able to see when they're scheduled for. We can upload documents and we can re-download those documents again. So very, very similar to the checklist. The primary difference being that we can just schedule these onto the rosters. Then if I click onto skills and attributes, we can see here it is exactly as simple as I described it previously. We just tick or untick what applies to Charlie and leave blank what doesn't. If I try to assign him to an appointment that would then be requiring a female carer, the system is going to flag that for me. And I can also set if these warnings, if it's just a warning, I can set that maybe myself, the primary administrator, I can override these warnings, but maybe other administrators can't override these warnings. Or maybe I just want to set that no one in the company can override any warnings whatsoever. That's going to be totally up to yourself. We've also got client and carer preferences. Now, within Charlie's profile here, we've got a list of his preferred clients, neutral clients, and disfavored clients. We've also got this list on the client side too, so I can set preferred carers for particular clients. Now, if I was to double up carers to a single appointment, I'm sure some of you guys will do that. We can also set carer preferences. So for example, maybe there's an awkward office romance. You might want to split up here, Charlie and Maureen, and yeah, we can set them to be disfavored, and the system will then tell me if I'm about to assign two disfavored carers together to an appointment. Now, when it comes to time off, you're going to have a default amount that you can set. You can choose if this is done through accrual, or you can just set your own. We can also go into each individual carer profile, go onto the dashboard and the financial information, excuse me. I can then choose for each, I can change this for each individual carer if I need to, choosing if it's days or if it's hours. I can then, I can tick this box and set my own particular day too. It'll always show me how many days this person is taken. And then when I'm actually booking time off, whatever the type of time off this is, we click onto this green button, and then I can select the time off type from that list I showed you previously in the admin section. We can just pick or choose whatever it might be. We can choose the start and end date. We can leave notes, and we can choose how many days of holiday this will use, if any. Then Charlie's appointments for this day, even if it's something he's already got appointments on, let's say it's for next Monday when he's got appointments, all of these will just be automatically unassigned from Charlie, and he will be unavailable for that day. Now, one final thing I want to show you on Charlie's profile here before we start looking at some client profiles is just the diary here. And there's actually a diary in both the carer and the client profile. They both work exactly the same way. The categories themselves, we can see them listed here, client specific and carer specific. You create them all yourself within the admin section. If I filter back to a day where I know something definitely did happen, and when I say filter back to a day where I know something definitely happened, you can see I've just filtered back 4 years. Um, but if I click onto this, we can see up at the very top left here, we can see an accident. Now, that is obviously a category created by myself, a client-specific category. We can see Amy had a fall. We can see the carer involved, Charlie, the client involved, Amy. We can also see the date that this occurred and who created this. Now, Darragh Connolly, that's me. I created this one. However, if Charlie was a real carer and Amy was a real client, Charlie could have created this directly from the mobile app. He could have selected it as an accident. He could have left the note here. He wouldn't have had to, select which carer and client were involved because it would have been done through his mobile app on an appointment with Amy, so that would have already been linked. Charlie could have also attached up to 5 images, which would have been visible here in the attached files. So when maybe Amy fell, maybe she broke her glasses or cut her knee or something like that, Charlie could have attached those files there, those photographs or images. It'll then create this diary entry, exactly the same. The only difference, it will say created by Darragh, or sorry, it won't say created by Darragh. It'll say created by Charlie instead of created by Darragh. Then in the office, once this has been created, I can then choose to change visibility options. Maybe I want to restrict this to everyone bar myself or bar a particular job title. Maybe I want this visible to every single carer who's going to be visiting Amy for the next 6 weeks or whatever the case may be. We can do that there. I can also assign this to someone for further action, setting a priority, a status, and a deadline. And then anytime anything happens from now on, I can add new comments and I can also attach new files as well if I need to. And we can see here the date and time a note was added, the user who added it, and the note itself. Then down at the very bottom left, comments and revisions, we can see them here. Now, when it comes to reporting on this as well, it's actually very easy to do that too. In the report section, we can, excuse me, I could, let's say, in the last 6 months, view all the accidents, diary entries in relation to maybe a particular carer or a particular client, or just all my carers, all my clients, or all my categories, or whatever time frame I want. And then within the reports there, once that has been ran, I can then email it, print it, save it, or export it. Now, hopefully that makes sense. If there's any questions, of course, feel free to drop them into the question box. But from there, I'm just going to move on to the clients. Now, very, very similar here. If you understand the carers, you are likely going to understand the clients. We can see here as well a very, very similar dashboard of information. Again, all of that is found in further detail within the report section. So I'll just breeze right past it for now. We'll be talking about reports in a moment. On the left-hand side here, we can see a list of our clients. Now, we click into Amy Santiago here, where we can see her beautiful photograph as well, of course. We can see Amy's week of care appointments. This time, the names are the carers who are going to be visiting Amy. We can see here Charlie from 9 to 10, Monday to Friday. That's what we were just looking at. Now, before I go more into rostering and scheduling, I just want to show you a few little bits here. So first of all, if I click up onto the dashboard, we go into personal information. We can set a status. So we're able to track people from being prospects to having left us. And as well, there's also a status on the carer side as well. We can choose if this is a person or an organization. So it might be handy if you're sending carers into a care home or something like that. Then we've got your kind of expected information, names, email addresses, phone numbers, etc. We can set the location where we put an address, postcode, entry notes, and a key safe, all of which is going to be visible in the mobile app for your staff. You don't need entry notes and a key safe, but you need an address and a postcode. We can pinpoint this on the map, and if when we do that, we see that maybe this is actually the wrong house. I know, especially sometimes with let's say new build properties or very, very rural houses, pinpointing on a map might not always be 100% accurate. So what we can actually do then is I can just pick this up, and maybe it's the house in the corner here, move that there, click save, and then that pinpoint location is going to be what the system uses to determine distance and travel time to and from Amy's house. As well as that, one of the methods to actually clock in and clock out for appointments on your staff side, one of those methods uses GPS tracking. And you'll be able to see on a map if your staff are clocking in at the right place. There'll be a pinpoint showing the client's location and a pinpoint showing where the carer clocked in. We also have contacts to add. I mean, incredibly straightforward. I can add, emergency contact or a district nurse or a key holder or anything like that. They can be added here. If I go to tasks, now before we go through scheduling and rostering, I just wanted to show you the tasks here first. So we can see those very broad and generic tasks that we would have created here in the admin section. And then we can see they have been personalized specific to Amy. We can do that on all of our tasks and all of our clients. And I can even create a custom task here specific to Amy. So should she have a very particular requirement or need, and maybe she's the only client of mine that I actually do this for, I can create a task, and this task will only appear on Amy's profile, not in our admin section, not in the other clients' profiles. And one more thing I want to show you before we go into rostering is the medication. So each client will have their own list of medicines. Like always, click the green button to add new. Then we can add a name, a dosage, strength, route, frequencies, time gaps, additional notes, all of which is going to be visible on the mobile app. And as well as that, if we were to set a time gap, just for example, we have a medication type that needs a 5-hour time gap. And then maybe a carer goes into Amy's house at 9 a.m., gives them that particular type of medication. Then there's another appointment at 10:30 or 11 within that time gap. This medication type that Amy just received and was recorded and has a time gap will not be able to be interacted with on the mobile app. It's going to be all fully grayed out, and it will show that it was taken on X time and any potential notes that that previous carer would have left. Then, of course, we can set a start date and a start time. And if needed, we can set an end date and an end time if I'm creating antibiotics or a batch of steroids or something like that for Amy. We can then also set if this is just for information, if this is non-mandatory or mandatory. And then itself, the instruction can be configured as well in the admin section. So I've added all of these instructions myself. You could you just only administer. You can just have that one. That's totally fine. But maybe, a certain type, I'll administer it, but then another type I only prompt the client to take it. We can configure that from medication to medication type. As well as that, the outcomes themselves are fully configurable and customizable too. So I've added all of those myself. You can have twice as many as I've got there, 5 times as many, 10 times as many, or you could just have your staff being able to say yes or no if you want to. It's going to be totally up to yourself. Either way, whatever the case may be, no matter how many outcomes you have, your staff are going to be able to leave a note after recording that outcome too. That note will then populate into your mark sheet, and like I said, the next carer administering that type of medication will be able to see it too. Maybe, for example, there's a particular medication type that I don't need all these outcomes that I've got. I can just let's just say we want just these 3 possible outcomes that my staff can record. And then maybe if 2 out of 3 of these are recorded, I want to be alerted back in the office. We can set that up. So maybe, Amy's diabetic. We're creating her insulin here. I want to be notified anytime Amy does not receive this medication for any reason. Set this up like so. Trigger the alert on this outcome for anything other than administered. And then back in the office here, myself, my management team will receive that notification. And I will be showing you what the actual mark sheet looks like when we're talking about reports, and I can show you what it'll look like on the carer side as well on the mobile app. But before that, what I want to do is just click onto the schedule. Again, I know I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but any questions, feel free to drop them into the chat, just as a constant reminder there. Now, the schedule here is where we can actually create a fixed care package. I can, very much the same as my carer's availability, I can create those alternating weeks. So up to 4 weeks for whatever reason. This could be maybe, for example, Amy's away with her daughter every second weekend, so we don't actually provide care for her that every second weekend. Or maybe it could be, Amy's got the same types of care every single week needed, but maybe, for example, D here is not available every second weekend to come to the Saturday and Sunday morning appointments. We can create the exact same schedule, have it 2 weeks, and then maybe for this 10 o'clock appointment on a Saturday and Sunday, every second weekend, we've got, Charlie going instead of D. One way or the other, that schedule populates the roster every single day. We can see here the 29th to the 5th. That's this week, of course. We can see it's Friday here, thank God. And if I click on to next week, we can see the same appointments. The week after that, the same appointments again. And I can even go into the future. So I'll say May 2029, May 21st, 2029. We can see the same appointments again. Now, of course, when you're creating those schedules, you can set it to have a specific expiry date. So maybe you don't want, this going on indefinitely like I've got mine. You know that this is only going to be the case for the next 6 months. You can set that expiry date and you don't have to remember. The system will just stop populating that rota. Now, what the roster is for versus the schedule is for making little tweaks and changes to these appointments without affecting my schedule, meaning without affecting future rosters. So, for example, Frank here, maybe he's running late, or maybe just Amy is away or something like that, and we need to move this back just for today. Not every week, not every Friday, not every day, just today. It gets moved on the roster. Simple as just clicking it with my mouse and dragging and dropping. Confirm the change. If I click to next week, we can see that has not been affected. Back to this week, we can see the change there. And back to our schedule, we can see that's not been affected there either. Now, if I wanted that change moving forward, of course, I would have done that on the schedule here. So let's say, every Monday moving forward, this gets nudged back half an hour. Go onto our roster, and we will see next week now has Monday's appointment nudged back. And of course, Friday that we changed on the roster will not have been affected there. Very, very handy piece of kit here, because we can just set up this schedule, populates our roster every single day if we, if there is a fixed care package like that. And I want to actually just let you know as well that when you're creating these schedules, you don't have to add carers to them. So if I know that Amy needs the same types of care every single day or every single week, but my carers aren't always going to be around on those particular times, we can just create these as unassigned appointments. So I'll just remove D from this one for now. We can see that's red, meaning it's unassigned. Go onto my roster. We can see this has been unassigned, and I can just come in here and I can assign this every week then if I want to. Click this back onto D for tomorrow. Next week, we can see that is not D, so I can maybe click that onto someone else, maybe Nick here if he's available. He's not. And we can see as well an accidental showcase of the warnings. But yeah, we can attach this to someone, perhaps Jack. We can see, yeah, now Jack has been assigned. Now, what we can also do on this roster is actually make appointments. And these appointments then will only show on this particular week that we're talking about. So add a new appointments. We can set the time. So maybe between 6:30 and 7 today, which is Friday again, thank God. We can select the carer that's going to be required. Or again, let me just leave this blank for now, because there's a few easier ways to assign carers instead of just looking at their names from a drop-down box. I can click tasks and then select what needs to be done. Maybe it's just care for pets and cooking here today. Click save. We'll see that unassigned appointment now added to the roster. There are, like I said, a couple of ways of doing this. If I know the person is free and happy to take on this appointment, the easiest thing, of course, is just to select from the drop-down box. I can also get a recommended carer. And this is actually, very, very, it's a very smart bit of kit here. A very, very handy tool within this system is the system recommending us a carer now. And what we can see here on the left-hand side, excuse me, what we can see on the left-hand side is a list of all of our carers. We can see their travel methods as well, which I actually totally forgot to even tell you. In each of our carer profiles, we can add their travel method, which is going to be taken into consideration when determining travel time. We can see midnight to midnight going left to right. We can see all of our carers' appointments throughout the day. We can see all of our carers' availability throughout the day. And this green appointment with the purple outline is the proposed appointment that we're now trying to assign. And this system is telling me that Doyle is the most suitable and Nick is the least suitable. And the reasons can be found just by clicking this proposed appointment button. So the amount of times that this client has, or the amount of times, let me try again. The amount of times that this carer has visited this client, if the carer is available, if they're not on any appointments at that time, if they've got the skills required, if they're preferred, distance and travel time, of course, as well as hours requested and hours assigned. Now, you can actually tweak what this system looks at when recommending a carer as well. So I've got my system to always look at availability, familiarity, and if they're preferred or not as kind of the most important things to look at. But you might work a totally different way. So instead of it always recommending, the most familiar carer, like my system is usually going to do, you might have it set that distance or travel time is the most important thing. So it will 9 times out of 10 recommend the closest carer to that client. And then we can click select, click save, and Doyle has been assigned to that appointment. Now, of course, we can always see these weekly stats here as well. The amount of appointments, required hours, booked hours, etc. Amount of carers working too. And just in case you were looking at this and wondering what this was like, this respite, it actually works exactly the same as the time off, except it's not being, tracked the amount of, you don't have holidays, it's essentially. So add a respite type. If there's an end date in sight, we can add that. If not, it will just be indefinitely ongoing until we cancel it. The respite type itself, again, another thing that is customizable within the admin section. Leave a note if we want to, and then it will just unassign Amy's appointments. It will just essentially stop Amy's schedule from populating the roster until we either cancel the respite or until it's run its course. Now, like I had mentioned, when I was first assigning this appointment to Doyle, that there are a few different ways to do this. From the drop-down box, from the recommended carer, like I said, but as well as that, we also have the manage screen. This manage screen is showing me today. All of my carers listed on the left-hand side, Charlie down to Ryan. We can see their travel methods, of course. We can see midnight to midnight going left to right, all of our carers' appointments throughout the day and all of their availability throughout the day. Now, this long appointment has been put in here specifically to show that this system works perfect for a 15-minute appointment or a 15-hour appointment. Doesn't matter the length, this system is still going to work great for those longer appointments or shorter appointments, whatever it might be. Now, we can also see when I group a number of appointments together, we can create a run. So if my carer is going from one appointment to the next, to the next, to the next, group them up into a run, and they actually do have a number of different uses. One being, you can treat it as if we're a shift when you're paying your staff. So, for example, you want to pay Charlie here from 9 to 12 hourly. You can do that if you want. Now, you don't have to do that, of course. Another thing is when you're actually paying for travel time or mileage, if you do, again, you don't have to, but the system will help you do that if you do. You can choose to only calculate that mileage or travel time within a run if you wish. And Now, you might not use either of those methods, which is perfectly fine, but something I feel you definitely will use them for will be the allocation of unassigned appointments. Like we can see up here at the top, 4 appointments unassigned in a run called Charlie PM. Now, what I could do is one by one go into each appointment, click on the drop-down box or get a recommended carer. I can click on the entirety of the run itself and select a carer from the drop-down box or get a recommended carer for the entirety of the run. Or I can just use, my left mouse button and my eyes and just drag and drop this run down onto a free carer, Dennis here, who's free. And if there's any issues, so should Dennis be off sick or unavailable or, on another appointment, he doesn't have the skills required, maybe his checklist items are out of date, maybe he's just not liked by one of these clients, that will be visible here. It will be in big red writing. I promise you'll not be able to miss it. Confirm the change, and there we have it. Now, as well, I want to show you how you're not locked in to using those runs if you're wanting to make those kind of bulk changes like I just did there. So should Frank call me and tell me once he's left Gina that he's, that he's sick and he's not going to be able to go to the rest of his appointments, I can just hover over the 3 of these, drag them down, drop them, confirm the change. So, like I said, we're not locked into using them, but it most certainly does make it a bit easier sometimes. I want to show you as well that we can choose to group our roster up by either job title or by region or by none, like I've got here. But let's just click onto our region. We can see our Bath region, our Bridgewater region, with all of our clients and carers involved in there. And just to show you here, we can go into our future, May 2029, and we can see we have got all of our rosters ready to go purely because of us creating those schedules. And of course, I can make changes here, whatever change I need. If I'm making changes to the future, next week, next month, next year, whatever the case may be, click today, and we are brought right back to today. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the kind of rostering and scheduling. What I will talk about next is the mobile app. So what your staff are seeing on the day-to-day. And that is like so. They open up their app, they can see today, the date, the amount of appointments they have, and the total hours worked. You're able to set a cap. So while they can click between the days, look into the future, maybe you only want them seeing this week or the next 2 or 3 days. You can set that cap. We can see all the upcoming appointments with client names, postcodes, phone numbers, appointment start and end time, approximate distance and travel time. We can also see here a training event that's been added in. Once I tap on an appointment, it's actually going to bring me to this next screen where I can flick between the summary, the notebook, the info, and the contacts. Now, sorry, I'm after missing a question. Do you have a list view in rostering? So that's a good question, actually. What we can do, we can do that in reports. If you mean, let's say we can run either a carer roster. So I can see here from, let's just do next week's roster, for example. And I can add any additional information, maybe tasks, run this report, and we're going to be able to see Charlie Kelly here, my carer, his Monday, all the appointments, the carers or the clients he's visiting, and the tasks he's doing on those appointments. We can see Tuesday and so on, and then I can scroll down. We can see Darragh here, we can see Dee here, and Dennis and so on. Now, this then can, much like any other report, we can email, print, save, or export this. And so if I wanted a PDF of the roster for the office, I could do that. Or if I wanted, I could actually click this email button, and having this top option selected would mean I'm going to email Charlie his roster, Dee her roster, and so on. So yeah, absolutely, we can see it like that. Now, back to the mobile app. We can click between the summary, notebook, info, and contacts. The summary is going to be a summary of your client information. They will have, oh, sorry, I'm just noticing here. Unfortunately, no. The way that the roster was listed that I just showed, that's how our roster is listed. So apologies. Apologies. I'm having issues with my headphones. But yes, unfortunately, if that view of the roster that I showed you is not kind of what you were expecting, it's not the way you're doing it. Yeah, that's unfortunate, but this is the way that our roster actually works. And believe me, when it comes to, let's say, the feedback after training, once people have been trained up how to use this system, they love this roster. Actually, believe it or not, when the kind of system was first made, it was basically only a roster. So it really is the kind of the meat and potatoes, so to speak, of that system. So yeah. Yep. So what I'm talking about now is the mobile app. So I'll answer the questions here. Well, we can talk through the mobile app. After that, if you've got any more questions about the mobile app, we can talk about that. So let me just run through this mobile app now. So the notebook is where we can see any of those diary entries that have been made visible, or previous handover notes, previous appointment notes, task notes, etc. The info tab is where we can download and access that care plan document. So this, by the way, when I say download, it's not going to be on their picture gallery, their phone, their files, anything like that. They'll still need to log into the mobile app to access it. The mobile app as well, just to piggyback on all of this, 256-bit encryption, the same encryption standard as online banking. There's no screenshots or screen recording allowed on that app either. Contacts is where we would see a list of our clients' contacts, of course. Then we've got a few different methods of how your staff can actually clock in and clock out of appointments. So first of all, the first method, I actually kind of hinted at it previously. It's called start stop. Your staff simply press start when they start, stop when they stop, and it pings their location and the time. You'll be able to see it on the map in the report section. You can see exactly when and where your staff are clocking in. So you know that they're clocking in at the right time in the right place, maybe not at maybe not at the right time, but potentially down 10 minutes down the road getting a cheeky sausage roll from Greg's. You'll be able to see that on the map. And there are a few additional devices too. So these are totally optional. You do not need to use these if you do not want them, but they can be very, very handy. And you can mix and match as well. So if certain methods work good for certain of your clients and then you want to use other methods for others, that's totally fine. So the first method is called NFC. That's near field communication. Same technology that's in contactless payment with debit cards. Your staff simply put their phone on the tag when they arrive at the property. This tag will remain in the client's home. Every single one of your carers who's going to that client uses this same tag to clock in. Put their phone on the tag to clock in, put their phone on the tag to clock out, as if they were paying for something with Google Pay or Apple Pay. Then the OTP device is the one that we always recommend for low signal or rural areas. The one-time password is what it stands for. Sorry, I've lost my words there for a second. But how this one works is, again, it'll remain in the client's home. Every single carer who's going to that client uses this device to clock in. They tap this button and it generates a one-time password, which they actually input into their mobile app then and there. Then, even if they're outside a signal for the next 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours, all the information that they record, so tasks, notes, medication, all of that they record, caches and stores within the mobile app. Then once they're back into signal, even if it's not for 8 or 9 or 10 hours, when they're back into signal, all of that information syncs back to you in the office, and it actually clocks them in based on the time that they've pressed that button. So we can't guarantee 100% accuracy in offline mode unless you're using an OTP device. And when I say 100% accuracy, I'm talking about times and locations. So if it's a very low signal area with no Wi-Fi in your client's property, wouldn't recommend using NFCs or start stop. We would recommend an OTP device. So those are the three methods. And once more, just to kind of tie a bow on that, is that you can mix and match. So you might have one client in a low signal area. You put an OTP device in their house. Everyone else is in a good signal area, let's say, and they just use start stop or the NFC tags. Then once your staff have clocked in, they've got tasks to complete. We can tick yes or no on if these tasks have been completed or not. Certain tasks might have had alerts, like I was saying. Certain tasks might have had optional or mandatory notes. A note box will appear underneath after interacting with the yes or no button. If it's a mandatory note, they're not going to be able to go any further without without leaving a note, excuse me. Medication can then be recorded. All the notes and information, dosages, strengths, routes, frequencies, all of that you've created in the client profile will be listed here for the staff member. They can, of course, record that outcome. They can leave a note, like I said. That note, and of course the outcome as well, is populated into your report section to create a mark sheet, and as well is going to be visible to the next carer. And then finally, on the mobile app, here is where your staff would actually leave any handover notes. So this is where Charlie would have left that note about Amy having a fall that we were talking about that created that diary entry. We can alert a supervisor, select a category, attach up to 5 images and leave the note itself. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it when it comes to the actual, let's say, the workflow of your care team while out in the field. Clock in, or actually, first of all, look at what they've got upcoming, access any care plans or any information that they, previous handover notes, then clock in, tasks, medication, handover notes, clock out. To go back to, for a moment, to go back to when we were talking about security as well, I just want to let you know as well that if at any point you have a carer who leaves you, loses their phone, has their phone stolen, anything like that, you can immediately revoke access to that carer's phone. They will not be able to log in and see any information about your company or clients or anything like that again. And that is the mobile app. So what I will do now is we can talk a little bit more about reports. Now, a lot of this is actually going to work very similar to what I just showed you there with that carer roster. But of course, there's going to be a lot more different kind of types of information that we might need to see here. So I'll show you a couple of these. The first one I want to show you here is the export appointment data report. Now, this one is very, very comprehensive. We can add different columns in. So maybe I want to add my actual start, actual end times, run the report. And we can see now there's, of course, actually no actual start and end times, but these would be the times that your staff are clocking in and clocking out. And we can actually cross-reference that with the planned start and end times too. Run this report. We can print, save, or export this data. Back to reports as well. If I want to just see call monitoring stats and figures, I know local authorities might be requesting this information, as well as the the CQC will likely be requesting this soon too, as the call and care monitoring stats, where we can filter by our dates, run the reports, see all of our clients listed, see the carers required, the cancellations, the monitored and missed appointment percentages. Now, hopefully yours are the other way around, that you don't have 100% missed. You've got 100% monitored, so you're not having to send out P45s in the post like I am to all my staff here. We can then see average duration in terms of percentage, average earliness and lateness, both in terms of minutes. We can action this by emailing, printing, saving, or exporting. And like you probably kind of noticed here, all of these reports, they have got very kind of similar actions and very similar process to actually get the report itself. But still, I want to show you the mark sheet because, of course, this is a very important one. Now, again, please ignore my lackluster staff. They will be getting a talking to after this. But we can filter by our clients, our medication names, dates, outcomes, carers. We can run the report, see all of our clients listed, see the medication, the recorded time and date, the outcome that was recorded, the carer who recorded that outcome, and then any admin notes that they might have left. Now, That could be, let's say, for example, after Amy had some paracetamol here, maybe she felt a little bit sick in her stomach. Your staff can leave that note. That's, of course, visible here, but it's also visible to the next carer administering paracetamol for Amy. So they'll know that, maybe just this time, make sure she's sit down or has an extra glass of water or whatever the case may be. And again, email, print, save, or export. So really anything that's happened, whether it be in the system, whether it be, out in the fields, whether it be in the back end in the office, we can run reports on. And just to prove that here, I want to show you this activity log where we can see all these changes that I've actually done on this demonstration so far. So we can see appointments moved around, and we can see an appointment created. We can see, we'll even be able to see things deleted. Yep, we can even see things deleted. So there is no hiding. If your admin staff said they did do something or didn't do something, you're going to be able to find it here. We can filter by users, administrators, type, actions, dates, and times. And of course, email, print, save, or export. And that's pretty much the report section. It does what it says on the tin, of course. I just wanted to go through a few of those, a few important ones that I know. I'm sure some of you would have been very curious to see what they look like. And yes, okay. Finally, we are on to finance. Now, if anyone is like me, I'm dreadful with numbers. And, hearing the word finance can often, cause a shiver to the spine, let's say. But even I can understand this section. So if numbers aren't your strong suit, don't worry. Very, very simple and easy to understand. What I'm going to do first of all is I'm just going to click here onto confirm appointments and then go into the configure settings. So what I can actually do here is on my system, I just automatically confirm every single appointment. Meaning if there's an unconfirmed appointment and I try to run a timesheet or an invoice, it'll flag up. It won't be able to generate for that time period. And then you'll have to go and just review it and make sure that appointment happened before confirming it yourself. So what you can do, automatically confirm the appointments, and then you can set parameters whether or not if X has been completed, if X has happened, then that appointment is not confirmed. So, if it doesn't have an actual time, or if they were late, or, the appointment was not the correct duration. If you've set it for do not pay or do not invoice, or if the appointment was cancelled. Or even if it was just for particular clients or carers, maybe you don't want those appointments automatically confirmed. Either way, we can we can set up those parameters, of course, like I've got. And then when it comes to actually the invoicing and the payments, it's so similar to set up. We have got invoice groups, and this is where we're going to be putting, let's say I've got local authority clients and private clients and I charge them differently. That's where I'll do this. So like I can see here, private and local authority, maybe I've got different care services, any reason whatsoever that you might be wanting to divide up your client base like that. If it's only one group you need, by the way, that's totally fine. You don't need to create multiple groups for this to work or anything like that. So we send clients to a group, fill those groups with rates. Name it whatever we like, describe it whatever we like, add it to that relevant invoice group. So just for an example here, just a rough example, weekdays, daytime rates for our private clients. I can then choose if this is going to be fixed cost or time-based. Now, if it is time-based, we can set multiple different thresholds. So for example, £20, we might charge for an hour, but maybe half an hour, it's not exactly in the middle of 10, maybe it's 12. So up to half an hour, I charge X. Beyond half an hour, I charge Y. And like I said, add as many of those thresholds in as we need. I can choose if this is going to apply any day, or maybe I've got a weekday and a weekend rate, or a bank holiday rate, or a particular Saturday and Sunday rate. That can all be added there. And if this is going to apply to the whole day or just part of the day. So if I've got a daytime rate or a nighttime rate or happy hour, I don't judge. We can add all of that there. And then we can choose if this is going to apply to selected job titles, requirements, and regions. Remember, those final 3 categories, all customizable by yourself in the admin section. Now, simple as that to create a rate. I click save, and this rate will then be added into this invoice group. Something I didn't actually mention, just jumped to me there. When you're creating invoice groups as well, you can select, you can create them to be, from multiple different funding sources. So, you might have a local authority paying a percentage, or just like a flat figure, and you can have that. So like, half local authority, half private, that kind of thing as well. Then when we generate our invoices, we can generate them to whatever time period we want, weekly, bi-weekly, monthly. I personally have mine here monthly, but it's going to be totally up to yourself. And then what we can do here is we can see all of our invoice numbers. We can see the client names, the invoice groups, the start and end dates, the issue dates, hours of care provided, and the cost. Then down at the bottom, we can see the total number of hours of care provided and the total expected incomings. Then I can select individuals, or I can actually bulk select and make bulk actions. So if I want to change the status, I can mark as paid, unpaid, part paid, sent, or on holds. I can also delete, regenerate, email, print, or export as a PDF, a CSV in the preferred 0 format or in the Sage 50 format too. Then let me just click into an invoice and show you what they actually look like. So Amy's invoice, again, we can see her beautiful photograph up here at the top left. We can also see our company logo and information at the top right. That's all done in the admin section. So you can put in your own company logo and information, which will populate your invoices and timesheets. Then at the top left, we can see the invoice and the client information, of course. Below that, we can see a little brief breakdown, an invoice summary with rates, durations, and costs. Below that, you'll see a new category called extra items. And this is actually for anything that would not be included in the automation of those rates. Click the green button, give a description and an amount for anything. You can see here I've got shopping for £20 if we took Amy out shopping and she had forgotten her purse or something like that. But we can also see here a broken plate with a deduction. So maybe I had a clumsy staff member who broke one of Amy's plates. I can actually knock £5 off it if I want. Anything at all that we're needing to add or deduct can be put there. Then, of course, scrolling down to see the full breakdown of the itemized invoice in detail. What we can see here is everything: the days, the dates, start and end times, the durations, the rates, the costs, and the carers. And you can configure this as well. This is purely just what my invoices look like. So if I actually go to my admin section and we go to finance and we go to the invoice settings, I have got so much that I can configure this with. I can even choose, maybe I don't even want to show an invoice summary, or maybe I don't even want to show the full itemized invoice. I can choose to add my own custom footers, my own custom headers. I can choose to add or remove different categories of information, like if I want to maybe not include the carer names or anything like that. Yeah, very customizable, as we can see. So my invoice here, while it's a generic example, of course, yours might not look exactly the same as this. So if there is information on this that you're like, oh, I wish that wasn't on this, I wish that wasn't on this invoice, don't worry about that. You can add and remove information. And if you understand that, you're going to understand the payments. It's so similar. Key differences. Two key differences, and one is the absolutely massive difference, of course, in that it is money going out instead of coming in. And another difference is that we can set up travel rates. Now I can create as many different travel rates as I want. You can see here I've got distance, where I'm actually charging or paying 20 pence per mile, but I don't actually pay until my carer has traveled 10 miles. I can also do something very similar with time. So I can choose my example here: after 10 minutes of travel, then my staff will be paid 15 pence per minute. Now, you can probably tell that I'm not in charge of a business with those numbers. And just remember, I preempted this by saying I'm bad with numbers. But yes, we can create as many of these as we want. I can set them to be, like I said, distance or time. Maybe for my people who use public transport, it is distance, but for my drivers, it's time, or whatever the case may be. I can create as many of these as I want. I can even do a combination of distance and time if I want, and yeah, assign them to different carers, whether it be for job titles, regions, whatever you like. Otherwise, it's actually all the same. I just kind of totally skipped right through that, but it is totally the same. Create as many groups as we need. Very much the same idea. Assign carers to a group, and then we fill those groups with rates. And those rates, exactly the same. If it's a daytime rate or a nighttime rate, if you've got a weekday or a weekend rate, if it's a fixed cost or hourly, half hourly, whatever the case may be, if you've got rates depending on job titles, skills, and attributes, all of that is identical. And we can see here as well in the payments that it's all very much the same here too. All the same information. We've actually got the same actions as well, so I can select individuals, or I can and I can change the status. I can delete, regenerate, email, print, or export. And then, guys, just to show you that I'm not lying to you here, the timesheet is exactly the same too. Now, company logo at the top right, timesheet and care information at the top left, timesheet summary below that, including our mileage and travel time added in. Extra items here, because unsurprisingly it was Charlie who was the clumsy one here, so he's the one who broke the plate. We can deduct those £5 from him, and then we can scroll down and see the full breakdown of the itemized invoice, or sorry, timesheet this time in detail. And again, same configuration option. So if I want to add or remove, put in my own custom footers, headers, that can all be done. Now, guys, that is essentially it. I'm happy we've gotten through pretty much everything. Oh, see, there's a couple of messages. Um, sorry, I'm just after seeing those messages there. Sorry, network went down a bit. Do you know if spoke about getting alerts for missed calls? Yeah, absolutely. So it's the same idea for getting alerts for maybe missed tasks and things like that. They're all fully customizable. I can come in here to the admin section. I can go to my alerts, and we can oh, that's the wrong page. We can go to our alerts, excuse me, create a new alert, and I can set it maybe that I get alerted if a carer is X minutes late, or if they've clocked out X minutes early. Tasks haven't been completed, care hasn't been successfully provided. And these can come through via email, via notification within the system, or via excuse me, via text message alert. But text message alerts will cost money. Emails and notifications within the system are free. And then just other questions. Can you allocate funder by visit? I mean, you could absolutely. We can come in here and we can click onto a specific appointment itself and change the invoice group, invoice rate, and so on, all within that if we need to. And yes, it will calculate minute by minute. Great questions there. Great questions, guys. Now, like I'm getting a few more questions. Sorry. Charge rate. Yeah. I believe I answered that there. Sorry, you're an anonymous attendee, so I don't have your name there, unfortunately. Um, uh, Dorcas, would this app be suitable for looking after children and young people with autism and challenging behaviors? Absolutely, absolutely. Look, this is so flexible, so versatile. We were initially made for domiciliary care, but that was over a decade ago. It was about 11 years ago now. And we, in that time, we've had dog walkers, we've had cleaners, and so on. And yes, you can add reference numbers to visits. Yeah, you'd have a booking reference for each appointment too there as well. Absolutely. Now, wonderful, wonderful questions, guys. I hope all of that made sense to you guys. We will, of course, be in touch in the near future to actually arrange kind of more one-to-one, more personal kind of interactions with either myself or some of my team potentially. And yeah, we can kind of talk figures and things like that when we're when we're actually kind of having a bit of a back and forth instead of me just talking at you guys. But yeah, unless there's any other questions right now, we can call it there and we can catch up in the near future. How does that sound? I will just give that another moment in case anyone is typing out a message. Any idea about the price? Yeah, Dorcas, we can talk about pricing individually once we're not on a group session, so we can actually, we can give you a personal quote for your own business depending on licenses and things like that. So yeah, absolutely, we can talk about that in the near future. Cheers, guys! It was an absolute blast. I hope you have a great weekend. I hope you have a great long weekend. In fact, yes, wonderful. All right, have a good one, guys. Bye.